Welcome to the Sports Lounge, edition 104, National Signing Day edition. I'm Travis Kriens, got David Shattenkirk, he went to USC, Mr. Traxler, I don't know where the hell he went to, and Mr. Hildebrand, decision pending. We don't know where he's going to go. So.
Well, there's a lot of good Sunday shows on TV, and when I got down to the end of my decision, it was either going to be the Sports Lounge or Meet the Press. Which show did I want to continue doing? And, I looked at everything. I really thought about it. I talked with my parents a lot and all my support staff, and I decided Sports Lounge.
Love it.
Can we take a look at that again?
Shout out to Marcus Drexler. He was my lead recruiter. He said, hey, this is way more fun than Meet the Press. And I said, you know what? You're right. And that pretty much settled it.
Was that from the official lounge store, I think?
Actually, one of our sweatshop workers in Malaysia put this together as a prototype. She did such a good job. I gave her a raise to 12 cents, and she's the highest paid employee there now.
Very nice. Any NCAA violations here, Mr. Traxler?
I'm the bag man in this situation. But I don't want to disclose how much money I may or may not have slipped to our prize recruit.
You've been there a long time, Marcus. You've run a clean program. You don't give a shit what they say, do you?
That's right. Never been caught.
Never been caught until now. Very good. Big on the college basketball. 5 weeks away. 5 weeks from today. They'll do the show. They'll announce the 68 teams that made it. Very exciting day. So we'll get into the college basketball.
They'll do a show and then we'll do a show probably, huh?
Yeah, they'll do their show, then we'll do our show, reacting to their show. So watch that show if you watch their show. Dean Smith, though, he died today at the age of 83. Longtime coach for North Carolina. Had dementia these last couple of years. Were pretty rough, but was the all-time wins leader there for a while. Was passed by Bobby Knight, and then he was passed by Coach K. So 800-some wins for Dean Smith, 2 national titles, a couple more appearances. Mr. Shattenkirk, what do you remember about Dean Smith?
Well, that's kind of a trick question. Quite a bit. I mean, obviously a legend amongst the coaching ranks in college basketball, and his relationship with Michael Jordan throughout the years, and just the overall, I'm one for hyperbole. I like to have things cut and dry and be use superlatives to describe somebody, but there's no way to describe him other than a great teacher, a great coach. Obviously, there's some things that he could have done better as far as his program, and some things that still went understated, undercovered as far as academic shit and whatnot. But he's one of the best, and it's sad to see him go. But then again, he was 83, 84 years old. He's not invincible like the rest of us. So.
Marcus, you were a youngster in 1997. You last coached. Do you remember anything? I remember Final Four appearance there. He just passed Adolph Rupp. He had 876 wins. Smith finished with 879. So it was during the tournament where he passed him for the all-time record, and then he retired that year.
I believe that was the fictional Gophers Final Four year as well. So
never happened.
Never happened. But, I mean, obviously, a lot of his career before my time, I actually thought he coached longer than he actually did so as a head coach. So, obviously, a lot of winning in a shorter period of time. And, I mean, he's going to be remembered as a consummate professional. And, I mean, I just think there's a lot to be said for the amount of respect that his players have for him. I mean, you see that even with Bob Knight. You saw that with Coach K. I think you'll see that with John Calipari when his career, as his career continues on. The coaches that are willing to build a solid relationship with their players, I mean that's invaluable, and that is what college sports is about. For all the back and forth about everything we don't like about college sports, I think Dean Smith represented quite a bit of what we do like about it, and I mean, aside from maybe the academic thing that David brought up, I mean, he did help to desegregate the game in a conference where The ACC is the conference it is, and it wouldn't be that way without Dean Smith because for 3 decades, he was at the very top.
You mentioned the civil rights stuff in the 60s. Apparently, he was against nuclear weapons in the 80s. Charlie, why don't more coaches do what he did and speak out on certain political issues or social issues when they have a platform maybe to do so?
I would say probably for the same reason that Michael Jordan never did it when he played. That essentially, well, no, not just for money reasons. I mean, that could be part of it, but that if people don't agree with you, I realize that the country's not half one side and half the other. There's independents too, but that theoretically, if you come out in favor of one thing, you could have half your recruiting base be like, well, I'm not going there now. I don't think most people would necessarily fall into that, but you could certainly have some, if it keeps you from getting a handful of good players. But certainly it worked out well for Dean Smith.
Now, he was one of these guys, for the longest time, he could never win the big one. He went to 3 national title games, 1968, 1977, 1981, and he could never win the darn thing. And then finally, 20 years into it, Michael Jordan hits that shot as a freshman, and they beat Georgetown. Another one in 1993 because Chris Webber didn't know what a timeout was. Was he one of maybe the first guys that you could think of that didn't, that Peyton Manning type thing? Well, he can't win the big one.
Yeah, it was certainly a knock on him for quite a while, but obviously winning like he did eventually does. It kind of rights all the wrongs. And if you get 1, you get 2, whatever. It talks about some ranks. You stick around, he had 800 some odd wins, whatever he had. It kind of gets lost in the shuffle after how much he did end up winning in the titles that he did win.
What about that 4 corners, Marcus? That was pretty bad. 4 corners.
It helped bring the shot clock into the game. No doubt about that. You still see that to this day where you're icing away the game. I can remember, obviously, my high school athletic exploits are not to be renowned, but I know that when we were in high school, the 4 corners was a way to put the game away, and he was the inventor of that. And we don't see that anymore because of the shot clock, but I think there's still elements of it that are worthwhile.
No, he coached there for about 40 years, all-time wins leader at the time. And their replacement to replace him was his longtime assistant for 30 years, Bill Guthridge. And he was not a long-term solution because he was in his 60s at the time. So he only lasted 3 years, made the Final Four twice. Charlie, is that an interesting way to go? To replace the legend, not going after a big name. They would soon later go after Roy Williams, finally get him later on. But getting the old-time assistant to replace the legend so that you don't have to have that guy get all that pressure.
It's an interesting idea. I know this isn't exactly the same, but it's sort of similar to what Nebraska did when Tom Osborne retired, and Osborne said, hey, you need to hire this Frank Solich guy to replace me. And it sounds like Guthridge going to 2 Final Fours was probably, in only 3 years, was a little more successful than Frank Solich was at Nebraska. But, it's always interesting in how when guys do that, it seems like it's always we're going to promote from within and try to keep this ship going, or we're going to bring in the outsider guy to sort of change things, and I think both can work. It sounds like Guthridge worked pretty well, even though it was only for 3 years. And then, who was it after that? Was it Doherty after that for North Carolina then?
Started out pretty well. Did not end well for him.
It did not.
Because I like Nebraska football and North Carolina basketball, and they both kind of went in the shitter at the same time. About early 2000s, 2003, 2004, just the worst, historically the worst seasons they've ever seen. And I was going to wear the hat before I wore it to work today, and then I learned that Dean Smith died, so it worked out well. And I was a Bulls fan first, Michael Jordan fan, and then I liked North Carolina because of Michael Jordan. So that's how that goes. Any strong feelings either way with North Carolina? One of those national teams. That's my one national team.
Mine was sort of the same as yours. Like most kids our age, we were all Michael Jordan fans because he was the best player on the planet in probably any sport at that point in time. And then it was like, oh, he went to this school, North Carolina, and they were also really good. And I've never been a diehard North Carolina fan, but I've always, if you were going to make me pick one of the teams that would probably be my favorite, it would probably be them. Now, I don't ever get worked up when they lose or anything, but yeah, I would say that mine's pretty similar to yours, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
North Carolina Duke has always been the big game, and I've always liked North Carolina more than Duke. So when it comes time, I've always respected North Carolina, and I've always liked Kansas more than North Carolina, so I was a little heartbroken when Roy Williams left for North Carolina, but I didn't have a huge problem with it. I still like Roy, even though he can sort of be a curmudgeon. And on the scale of college basketball curmudgeons, and we're going to get to Jim Boeheim in a little bit. At least Roy Williams is better than Jim Boeheim. So he's got I've always liked North Carolina. Never been in love with them. I know that David has kind of an interesting history of North Carolina basketball. Loving.
Well, I wasn't not gonna bring that up, but since you did,
yeah. How do you not? You're the guy who likes both North Carolina and Duke.
I don't. Let's rephrase that. I respect the heck out of both of them. Usually, what I do is year by year, or even in a couple years span, I'll go one over the other. I'll watch them more, or root for them more, or whatever. I don't hate either one. I know they're obviously heated rivals. But I respect them so much that if one beats the other, I don't care. If North Carolina wins the title, I'll be happy for them. If Duke wins the title, I'll be happy for them. It's one of those things that I was removed from the rivalry, and both teams have always been good in our lifetimes. So it's like, hey, these guys are winning. And I respect the programs because of the coaches and the players they've brought through over the years. I don't hate either one of them. I don't dislike either one of them, to be honest. And right now, obviously, this year, they're both pretty good again. And come tournament time, if either one makes a run, I'm not going to be disappointed either way. So it is different. I'm on the fence, and in a rivalry like that, you're really not supposed to be. But it's been that way for as long as I can remember.
I can defend you though, because we all are fans. I think we're all fans of college T-shirts. I obviously have the Clemson shirt. Charlie's got Florida State. I think a couple of you got Oregon. I don't know what Travis is wearing. Go Tennessee State.
Tennessee State golf.
Yeah.
Golf. Look at that. Get it done.
There you go. But I can personally attest that David has worn a North Carolina shirt one day, and the next day he wears a Duke shirt.
Ooh.
He's always got the USC hat on, but he's a true follower of both.
Yeah, there's many days in the rotation. I was down at school with you there for a while. There's many days, 3 days in a row. I'd wear North Carolina one day, I'd wear Duke the next, and the third day I'd wear a Kansas T-shirt. So
yeah.
Big time programs, a lot of respect, no hate here.
Good use of the word rotation for hats and things like that.
Good job.
You got an order, you put it in the order. Carolina blue, that's the powder blues of the Chargers. That's it, is it not? Or is that what you got here?
I think this is pretty close to Carolina blue.
No, I know. So a color named after a school / a state. So Dean Smith, 83 years old. To the rest of college basketball, David, how many teams would you say 5 weeks out are legitimate contenders to win the tournament?
I've got a list of 12.
Okay.
Wow.
Before you get to the list,
Let me rephrase that real quick. I've got 12 potential, and I've got 6 that I think have legit shots.
Okay. Do you expect the bracket challenges this year to be somewhat boring because everybody will pick Kentucky? I'm sure everybody will pick Duke to make the Final Four. I'm sure Virginia will go deep. It seems like there's not a lot of teams that people are gonna pick to win as far as a bracket will go.
Yeah, the breakdown of right now, the way it looks like it's going to play out, is Kentucky's going to be 70-80% everybody's pick, which is, is what it is. They deserve to be in that spot right now. They're obviously beatable, but Kentucky, Duke, Virginia. However, Virginia just lost their top scorer, a broken finger last night. That's going to shake things up. That probably knock them down a few seed lines. If they lose another game or two here and they'll win the ACC tournament, we can get into that more later. But Gonzaga is a team that I've been on. People are still kind of sleeping on them. Obviously, their competition level when they get in conference play is not very good, but they're 22-1. They're one loss. They just absolutely gave a game away at Arizona early in the year. Probably the best offensive efficiency-wise, anyways, in the country. You got teams like Wisconsin that's looking really good right now, but it is going to be Kentucky, Duke, Virginia, Wisconsin, maybe Gonzaga. I mean, there's nobody. There's nobody out of left field unless you're stupid. I don't think anybody's going to pick like an Iowa State to win the title in a year like this. You're pretty well certain that it's going to be one of 2 or 3 teams that's going to be cutting down the nets.
Sound about right, Marcus?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting that he brings up like a team like Iowa State or a Notre Dame. Like I think those could be Final Four teams, but I don't think they're championship teams. I really have only identified 3 solid national champion contenders. Then you always have those outliers. To me, it's Kentucky, Duke, and Wisconsin.
Oh, look at you, turncoat.
I'm a turncoat. I mean, like it's hard because Wisconsin. I mean, their offense is better and they're pretty suffocating. So I don't take any pride in that. Gonzaga has played a very good non-conference schedule. Like David said, they gave away the game against Arizona. Otherwise, they'd be undefeated. They'll be red hot going into the tournament. I think they could. They're a Final Four contender. I'm skeptical about a national championship with Gonzaga. I always will be until they do it, I guess. And Virginia, with the injury to one of their best scorers last night, has me kind of on the outside. And then the next 3 teams that I definitely could win the national title, but I've got some doubts are Kansas and Arizona and Louisville. I mean, ironically, all 3 of those teams lost yesterday, but to me, Kansas. I've talked to David about this. They've been so up and down. Sometimes they're red hot, and then they don't look any good. And Arizona, I mean, they've got so much talent, but it's a matter of them being able to put it all together. And they just have an inexplicable loss to Arizona State on the road yesterday. And Louisville, at least they lost to a very good Virginia team, but that's going to be a very difficult conference to get out of, and we'll see what kind of seed they end up with when the tournament comes around.
Yeah, the Arizona State loss yesterday was Arizona State's under 500 was at the time. That's for an under 500 team. Arizona State's pretty decent. It lost a lot of games. In a rivalry game like that, I'm not going to hold that against Arizona. I'll hold the loss at Oregon State against them along with I will at Arizona State. But again, it is their 3rd loss this year. It could come in a good time. Obviously, it's early February. They got time to figure it out. And like Marcus said, they're super talented. And one of these years, Sean Miller's going to figure it out and get them to the Final Four. But there is definitely a pause, anyways, in my mind, about them potentially winning the title this year.
Yeah, the way I look at it is Arizona, I mean, they've had all this talent. They've kind of let people down, I guess, if you think they should be a national championship contender. And one of these years they're going to fool us, and it very well could be this year with all the talent they have. So, they'll probably fool me and make a big-time run, but I guess we kind of have to sit on the outside for now.
Anderson's out 4 to 6 weeks, so that's close.
It's going to probably be that 6 weeks too, because it's a pretty nasty injury. He broke his finger. He had surgery. I think he's going to have surgery today or tomorrow. 6 weeks. That's the ACC tournament. He might even back for that, and then maybe that first weekend of the NCAA. You got to try to reintegrate him into the system, and I mean, obviously Virginia's not a great offensive team, and he's their best offensive player, so they need him back ASAP. It's going to be a very interesting storyline, especially if they're seeding-wise, and that first weekend, if he's going to be back or not, who they might face on that Saturday or Sunday.
Does it help that they don't have that one big score, that one big player? They're like the Atlanta Hawks. They don't have that one star to where it sucks that he's out. But you think they have enough to cover it here for the next month?
Yeah, they do, and they just got through the hardest part of the schedule. The rest of the way, it lightens up quite a bit. They just played Louisville, North Carolina, and Duke in 3 straight games, went 2-1 in the stretch. Losing him now, obviously they're probably going to drop another game or two. The ACC is pretty deep. They're not going to go. I don't think they're going to be able to not lose a game without him these next few weeks leading into the ACC tournament. I still think that it's Duke's ACC tournament to lose, so they're going to probably have 3 or 4 losses. But they're good enough defensively that they shouldn't fall off the cliff or anything.
Charlie, do you want to see Kentucky go undefeated?
I don't.
Oh.
I'm kind of conflicted about it. I mean, to me, in a perfect world, they would be undefeated, playing in the national title game,
Against
and
Duke.
lose to. I mean, yeah, it could be Duke. It could be 2 or 3 other teams in this lights out game that they lose, sort of like UNLV lost to Duke or like Memphis lost to Kansas in some great game. Where you're just like, wow, how did they lose? I think that's what I would prefer to see, but. I mean, it would still be neat to see him go undefeated too, just because it has not happened in college basketball, at least not in Division I in our lifetimes.
There's been rumblings inside the lounge. They're upset alert this Tuesday. It's Tuesday at LSU.
Upset alert.
Is this correct?
I think I mentioned it on the show a few months ago. I know for a fact I mentioned to Marcus. I said if they were going to lose a game, it would be in this stretch at Florida, at LSU. They got tested last night at Florida. LSU skill-wise, matchup-wise, with the bigs down low, decent guard play. But Tuesday night or at LSU, decent team. If they're going to drop the game for the season, it's Tuesday night. I'm not going to call it, but I'm just going to say that it's going to be probably a one-possession game with a minute left, and we'll see what happens.
I want them. Yeah.
David's been beating the LSU drum pretty hard, and they have not been a bad team this year. So I think a lot's in.
Ranked.
What's that?
How are they not ranked?
I don't know. I'm not real sure.
They have a couple horrific losses, a couple of absolutely horrific losses. The reason they're not ranked, they might be after we'll see what happens Tuesday night, but they're going to be a 6, 7, 8 seed in the tournament. They'll be dangerous to win a game or two.
Old Dominion, not bad. Clemson, yeah, that's right, boys. Clemson.
And they just shit the bed against Ole Miss or somebody just a few days ago, too.
Auburn. No good.
Auburn, yeah.
Auburn's a 500 team. Mississippi State, you're a 500 team. You lost there as well. So 2 in-conference losses. Not good. Missouri, garbage as well. Worst team in the conference. You lost in overtime, so that's no good. Marcus.
What was the question? I'm sorry.
I don't know. Whatever you were done talking about, whatever. I said, why are they not ranked?
Yeah, I don't have a good explanation for that, other than, some bad losses.
Yeah. I just want to see them lose to see if anybody would have the balls to not vote them number 1 the next week. So I think, regardless of if they lose another game, they should stay at number 1. Would you expect them to I would expect some votes, because they're unanimous number 1 now, I'd expect some votes to go to Virginia Gonzaga. But I don't think they should fall off that the number 1 team if they were to lose, even maybe 2 games, which is unlikely.
They wouldn't fall off it if they just lost 1 game because they're so far ahead right now. If they somehow lost 2 games and they say a Gonzaga or a Duke or a Wisconsin ran the table, then they might be in some consideration. But regardless, come tournament time, they're going to be a favorite unless the Harrison twins or one of the centers gets hurt in the meantime. And honestly, I'm kind of halfway rooting for the storyline we alluded to earlier. Them be undefeated in a title game against a Duke or Wisconsin or Virginia or who the hell ever, and then lose that game, or if they win it, or hey, they'll be 4-0. It'd be cool to see it too, because the hype train's been there all year, and for them to actually do it would be pretty special.
Shouldn't they move that game off on Monday? Because nobody's going to watch on the first Monday in March or first Monday in April. They got to move it off their baseball opening day. They should move it to January 2nd. Get it off of there.
Yeah, I don't know what they're doing. I mean, they're killing themselves for ratings. Yeah, it's
People
stupid.
don't watch on Monday nights. It's not like the championship game has been on Monday nights for the beginning of time. Horrible ratings.
I'm on the record. We have to check. This is a pretty long record. We have to check this record, but I am on the record.
Is this longer than the chat?
I mean, as long.
This chat's 3 years old, and there's like 70,000 messages in there. So
yeah, there's a lot. I'm on the record. I want to see Kentucky go undefeated, and I don't care what people want to say. I don't know if it's going to happen because they have if they have a handful of still difficult games. I think in the SEC, pretty much every road game is a potential disaster when you're a team of pretty much all freshmen and sophomores, and so I think they're the most talented team right there with Duke because Duke also has terrific freshmen, and I want to see it, and I hope it. At least we can get to March Madness and they're undefeated. That's all I want.
How about in the title game? Kentucky is up by 2 on Duke with 3 seconds left, misses both free throws, and then Duke pulls off the Butler full court shot to win.
Yeah, if they make it, I mean, that would be an incredible finish. I wouldn't want it to happen, but that's about as good a finish as you could have. I mean, we still talk about Butler Duke, and he didn't even make the shot. So I think that says a lot for what we want to see.
And another Calipari title loss because they couldn't make free throws at the end.
I mean, they only missed 1 free throw last night against Florida, and who knows if that's going to happen when they get to March, but this seems like a pretty poised group.
Is it not better having these freshmen in the game rather than going straight to the NBA? At least just for 1 year?
I still think it should be 2 years, or you can go right away. I think, like, if you want to go. But if you go to college, you got to be there for 2 years.
Okay. 1 seeds. Kentucky's a 1 seed. David, any thoughts? Besides that.
Yeah, Kentucky's 1 seed. If they're pretty well cut and dry. That is over at the number 1 overall. Right now, anyways, my 3 other number 1 seeds would be Gonzaga out west, Duke or Virginia. Right now, with Virginia's injury, I'll give it to Duke. Yeah, obviously, I recommend I had Virginia just last weekend or a week and a half or whatever it was. And the way I see it playing out is that 4th number 1 seed is going to be Wisconsin. So Duke, Wisconsin, Kentucky, Gonzaga.
Any disagreements with that?
No, I agree in that. I don't know where the regionals all are this year, but that works because you put Gonzaga out west, Kentucky in the south, Duke in the east, Wisconsin in the Midwest. That should pretty much cover it.
Regionals, the East Regional in the Carrier Dome. So Syracuse, they can host that. The South Regional will be at the Texans Stadium. That's the big one.
West Regional's at Staples Center, isn't it?
Staples, men. Staples. Host.
Los Angeles Lakers.
Loyola Marymount, I think.
It's the Defenders. Pepperdine. We're going to go with Pepperdine.
All right.
And the Midwest Regional, it's at the Q, however you make a fucking Q with your hands.
Yeah, Cleveland.
In Cleveland.
Wow.
That's not the Midwest, whatever.
Hosted, of course, by the MAC Conference. Because there's no team in there worth a shit.
Why isn't the East Regional being played in at MetLife Stadium outside?
Next year will be at Madison.
Like, if we can have the Super Bowl outside, can't we have the Final Four or something outside?
We're playing it in Rucker Park.
What's that? The Radio City Music Hall's open.
There you go.
Didn't they host the WNBA All-Star Game? I don't see why you can't have a regional site. Something like that.
They did host the New York Liberty did play there. I don't know if it was a whole season or how long, but they played there.
It was a game or something, yeah.
Yeah.
So usually, you sit on a stage to watch, but no, these guys are actually on the stage.
Yep.
Very interesting. And Lucas Oil Stadium, Indianapolis. Your host, according to this, is IUPUI, Butler, and the Horizon Lake. So
there you go.
And the laundry is done.
Laundry's done, man.
Man, laundry's done. Any dark horses? Any African American horses? We've talked about the top seeds. Any 5, 6 seeds? I don't see, like David, I don't see a UConn, a 7 seed, or a 6 seed making a run here. Any team that you like? We can play this back in 2 months and say, look at this guy, Charlie Hildebrand. He said that Pepperdine was going to make a run. See, Pepperdine made a run.
I think it's kind of fun watching Iowa State play. Now, the problem is I don't know if Iowa State can go that far if they're not playing all these games in Ames, though. I think if Iowa State got to magically play every tournament game in Ames, I think they could be in the Final Four. But since that's not going to happen, I don't think they're going to make the Final Four.
This ain't women's basketball. This ain't women's basketball. You at least got to get on a bus to go 50 miles down the road.
Can I give you a combo platter and then a real pick?
I feel like you're going to hijack one of my teams here, Traxler.
Yeah, I'm going to.
As long as you don't say the Blue Jays, I'm fine.
Okay. They're banned.
No Creighton.
Good.
Wichita State and Northern Iowa together. Like one of those teams is going to. Maybe even both those teams will make the Sweet 16, and maybe one of them puts something together. And then if you want like a real power conference team, I'm going to say Maryland. I've been really impressed with the way they played. The Big Ten is kind of a disaster of a conference as far as, they have a lot of good teams, but nobody's other than Wisconsin is really running away. And so Maryland, they'll be battle tested, and of course it's all about the draw. But I feel like that's maybe a team that can put a little run together.
Were any teams stolen?
I would have said the same thing a couple weeks ago about Maryland, but I've kind of cooled off on them. They still likely could win a couple games. I agree with the Valley. I think both those teams win 2 games. I think that the ceiling is higher for Northern Iowa than it is Wichita, depending on matchups, because Northern Iowa's defense is top 5 in the country. I'm going to have 2 more teams, 2 power conference teams. I mentioned Utah at the beginning of the year as an Elite 8 team. I called that from the beginning. They're not going to be a 7 or 8 seed. They're probably going to be a 3, 4, 5 seed. I still like them to make a decent-sized run, win 2 or 3 games. I think they have potential. If it falls right and they play well, that's still a sneaky Final Four team for me. The other team in the Big Ten, not Maryland, but the Ohio State, they have quite possibly the second best player in the country, D'Angelo Russell. I've fallen in love with him so hard the last couple of weeks. I've been paying attention all year. If Julio Okafor wasn't doing what he's doing at Duke, this Russell kid would be getting a lot more attention, a lot deservedly so. Absolute do-everything player for them. They've been looking pretty good recently. Big games come up on their schedule. They're going to probably be that 6 or 7 seed that could win. For my money, anyways, they could see winning at least 2 games. I love him. He's a top 3 or 5 pick next year if he comes out, which I'm sure he will. An absolute beast.
I can't remember, have we usually picked a team? I don't know if we've picked a team as far as a team that we've liked, our Clemson for the tournament. I know I hate the Mountain West, so what SDSU and what Wyoming, that's the shit they're going to pile out there this year for, so they're not going to get 8 teams in there, thank God, so we don't have to go through that again?
Wyoming's, I think they're probably at 3 teams, but Wyoming's an interesting team. I almost, given their recent illness of one Larry Nance Jr. that Marcus and I have discussed in depth over this season. I've cooled off like I have on Maryland with them, but they're not nearly as strong. But I could see Wyoming winning a game, but that's about it.
Ammon's Colorado State squad probably going to get in there. So, how about this? How about Temple? I think I might hook my horse's ass to Temple to make a run here.
Do you think so?
Well, if we're going to try to make it like Clemson, it should be some team that, historically is supposed to be pretty good most of the time, and that recently you're just like, wow, you are super talented. Why the hell can you not put this all together and really be good? Now, the problem is that could describe like 30 teams in college basketball. So I guess good and bad. The good is you'd have a whole bunch to pick from.
I think the Nathan Stacken combo platter of Villanova and Georgetown. He hates both of them.
We might as well take Kansas if that's going to be the case, because they've had some pretty epic collapses in the tournament.
Providence.
No,
if you do Villanova, then you get the best dressed head coach in college basketball, so that's fine.
That is fine.
I can't deal with Ed Cooley's hair. I like Ed Cooley, but I can't deal with his hair.
What happened to him yesterday?
Okay.
Did you hear what happened to him yesterday, Marcus, or not?
I didn't hear. No, I heard he got sick. He's out for a while.
Yeah, he left during the game. He got sick and went to the hospital. Whatever. He sounds like he's doing fine. They lost, but that's an interesting team. That's going to be in the tournament. It's going to be awfully hard for me to pick against in the first round, no matter who they play, because offensively they're real good. But I got a team for you, Travis, if you want to adopt it. For the NCAA tournament, that's kind of a little under the radar right now. I had a big win yesterday. been looking a lot better. Scott Drew and the Baylor Bears that could make another tournament run. Scott Drew's quite, for my money, he's a top 5, top 7 coach in the country. They're always, they're not at the forefront, but they're always right there, and they always seem to win a game or two, and they could do that again and then some this year. I know that goes against your TCU love and football.
No, that's fine. That's fine. I mean, you know how I feel about TCU basketball, so it kind of evens out.
I don't care what people say about like Baylor's team, and I mean Scott Drew, obviously a pretty good coach, but that's kind of a pit to recruit to. So it's pretty impressive what he's been able to do. I mean, especially basketball-wise, they don't have a very impressive arena or anything. So I would second David's Scott Drew backing. I'm not sure I want Baylor to be my team, my Clemson, but
I like Temple each year. I like those teams out there. Do I have to worry about Michigan State screwing shit up again here? Because bad year for them. Bad year. They can get like an 8 seed and beat Gonzaga or something like that. That'd be bad.
No, if they're an 8 seed, they're not. They might win the first game, but they're not beating a 1 seed. There's no way. It's probably Israel's worst team that I can ever remember.
Good. Player of the year. Okafor, is he the front runner?
That's
what do we got?
There is no other name than Okafor right now. I'm sorry. There's a lot of other really good players, but unless Okafor snaps a leg in his next game or two, he's got it locked up right.
That's a pretty short discussion, I think. Yeah, I mean he's been lights out. Should be player of the year, freshman of the year. That should pretty much cover it. Since
you said he's been lights out, give me the old Sean Merriman pump, pump, pump.
No, he took steroids, man. I can't do that.
He's getting the needle in. Don't talk. Jim Boeheim, Syracuse, not going to the tournament. Maybe would have gone. They were on the bubble. Academic problems. Mr. Schottenkirk, thoughts?
And dirty motherfucker. One dirty motherfucker. I tell you what, I've never really been a Bayham guy. Obviously, with Melo back in the day, that year was awesome to watch Melo do his thing and tag him to the title. But I've really never, he's won a lot. He's done a lot of good things. He's been there forever. I've never liked his style. I've never liked that fucking zone. I've never liked 90% of his players. Johnny Flynn, the fucking, what was that white guy back in the early 2000s, the 3-point special?
Eric.
McNamara.
Jerry
McNamara.
Yeah, he was probably on my list of top 5 most hated players ever. He's up there. With the academic misgivings here with Fab Melo and James Sutherland from a year or two ago, to the Bernie Fines shit, it's all come crashing down. He's just a curmudgeon, like Marcus kind of alluded to earlier. He's an old, just stupid-looking piece of shit that needs to shut up and kind of. He's trying to defend himself that they didn't do anything wrong. They're doing this because they want to and they want to make they want to make it up for their past discretions or whatever. It's like, no, the NCAA told you if you didn't do something like this, they're gonna fucking hammer your ass. So you're gonna walk with your tail between your legs. You're gonna do this, and then they hope like hell the NCAA say, oh yeah, they didn't go to they imposed this ban. In a year, they were probably not gonna make the tournament anyways, which pisses me off even more. I wish this would have happened when they were 25-0. Would have been a 1 seed. It's like, oh nope, we can't go because shithead Fab Melo 2 years ago decided that he didn't want to go to school, and we helped cover it up for him and shit. But I hope at Boeheim, a year or two, he gets out of there, retires, and just goes away. Otherwise, he's going to be a sad case of me or somebody having to get on him more than they already are. And there are a lot of critics that have been on him recently. His team's, he's still say what you will, he's a very good coach. I get that, but he's just his standards and his protocols just irk the hell out of me.
I enjoy him for all the reasons you hate him, because he's an old bastard. That's why I like him.
I guess I don't have as strong of feelings about Jim Boeheim as either of you two guys do.
I mean, he is a shithead. I obviously like the Cuse. I picked him in matchups that they weren't even playing in, but he is just kind of a jerk, and he's very difficult to like. So I'm more perturbed by the fact that this comes down in a year, middle of the season, when they know they're not going to make it to the tournament, that they put this ban down. So I'm not impressed. And
it also not to interrupt, but it pissed me off to a lot of these talking heads went to Syracuse and have Syracuse ties and shit. If this was the Duke, if this was North Carolina, if this was Kansas, if this was UCLA, if this was fucking any big-time program, this would have been more than just a couple-hour story on one day talking about it. Because I haven't heard anything since they announced it a few days ago. Unless you're watching college basketball-centric shows or whatever, you're not seeing anything about this. Yeah, it's in the papers or whatever. But if this was Duke or if this was Kansas, this would be at the top of the hour every hour on SportsCenter. This would be the lead story. This would be updates nonstop from reporters or whatever. They talked about it. Oh yeah, they're gonna sit out the tournament play this year. They may or may not have made it. And they really don't go into any detail. And nobody's taking a stand and saying, hey, no, this is more than just a one-time thing. And Boeheim's, in recent history, he's got a few things that are not looking so good. Maybe something should be done. And that is, his legacy is in jeopardy. I'm not one for a legacy guy anyways, but for me, he's always been Taurus in my eyes, and this proves and solidifies that hopefully other people see it the way I do, that he's not exactly a saint.
To be fair, part of the reason they're not talking about it as much as I think is that no one expects Syracuse, even if they were to make the tournament, to really do anything this year.
Right.
I can see that.
My point was, though, if Duke was a 500 team this year and something like this came out about a team a year or two ago, a Duke team that was really good, guys, this academic shit, it would still be the head story. And obviously that might not be fair because Coach K, obviously getting 1,000 wins recently in the timeline leading up to it would have created a much bigger story for a Duke-type program or a Kansas or whatever. But it's just the lack of coverage still is, even though I agree with what you're saying, it's still just, it irks me.
He's 37 wins away from 1,000, so if he has a really, really good year next year, he might get that, so he's probably going to have to coach for 2 more years, depending on how important that would be to him. Any games coming up this week you're looking forward to, college basketball-wise?
Kentucky LSU, like we talked about earlier, is one on Tuesday. Next weekend's looking pretty good. There's a game or two today that have Big Ten-wise that have decent size implications. Marcus's Maryland squad's got a sneaky game. They could go down today this afternoon. There's nothing really at the forefront. I'm going to be watching golf all afternoon.
I mean, Maryland is at Iowa today. Is that the game you were talking about, or are you talking about next week?
This week. I was talking about that game.
Okay, all right. Yeah, that's later today. That's obviously a huge game. If you're looking for something on Monday, you got Oklahoma's hosting Iowa State. That should be pretty good. We already talked about Kentucky, LSU. That's pretty good.
I see too many East Carolina games on TV.
You need to find some different channels, man.
I see too many times East Carolina's on my television playing basketball. I don't know quite sure why that's going on.
I'll say this: there's too many American Conference games on. I don't want to see most of those teams.
No,
I don't. I want to see Cincinnati every once in a while. I like UConn, but other than that, I'm not interested.
You don't want to see Danny Manning and his Tulsa squad?
Yeah, Tulsa.
Yeah, I mean Tulsa's not bad. I'm not interested, but
fucking Danny Manning. That's a whole. We could do a whole show on Danny Manning.
No,
David could do a whole show. I don't think I could.
I don't think I've ever mentioned it, but Danny Manning's on my Mount Rushmore of shitheads. So.
Wow. It's a topic to uncover at another time. Did Maryland end up doing pretty good for themselves basketball-wise in this conference reshuffling? Because I don't know where the hell they'd be in the ACC now. Yeah. I mean, the Big Ten, at least this year, at the top, not looking so hot compared to the ACC. Long term, was that a good move? Basketball?
I wrote this like 2 years ago. I was on board with the Maryland basketball wise, and football. They didn't embarrass themselves this year in the Big Ten. I think they had 8 wins. But I mean, I'm still soundly against Rutgers being in this conference, and that will never change. And I mean, yeah, they'd be buried in the ACC probably. They'd be what, the 5th best team I think right now. Ranking. If you just took the rankings.
They're 19-4 right now, 17th in the country, and you got 4 top 10 teams last week. So.
Yeah, I think it's obviously good for them. There was a point there where they were pretty clearly the 2nd best team, and like David's mentioned, they have had their struggles. I mean, I don't want to make this about the Big Ten, but the Big Ten's just kind of a mess in the middle, and I'll be very curious to see how that ends up in the tournament because there's anywhere from 4 to 7 teams that can make it.
I think the real question is, can Nebraska score more than 55 points in the game the rest of the season combined?
Oh boy!
8 games left or so. 7 that's a touchdown per game, Charlie.
It'll be close.
They don't have Abdullah anymore, so.
They don't.
Yeah, no running game to count on.
No.
I don't know why, but I was so fascinated in that game yesterday, Nebraska at Penn State. It's absolutely horrific basketball. I just could not take my eyes off it. That was Jesus Christ. It's just absolute rock fest.
West Virginia at Iowa State next Saturday. That's something. 3 p.m. Any takers? Duke at the Cuse. Traxer, can I get you to take the Cuse to beat Duke in the Dome?
No, Duke. I think we.
Go ahead.
I think we've talked about. I mean, Duke has had their struggles, but I think they'll win at the Cuse.
I'll take the Cuse. I'll be that guy. I'll take the Cuse. This is their big win for the year.
I'll give you like 12 points. I'm taking Duke in the points. They're not losing to Syracuse. I could obviously I've been wrong before. I could be wrong. Duke could go stone cold, not make any shots, but Syracuse, they lost a really tough game to Pittsburgh yesterday. They know that the season's winding down. They have nothing to play for other than pride. And with Boeheim, he might just hang it up and come back next year because the schedule looks pretty difficult. They're gonna probably finish 2-4, 2-5 the rest of the way in the conference. And Duke made an absolute, obviously Notre Dame, say what you will, but Duke made a huge statement to a lot of people yesterday, killing them by 30.
Something that's been all over the news, obviously. Princeton women's basketball, 21-0. Compare, if you would, Marcus. Compare as much as you can. Compare the.
Why do I have to do this?
Because you can't grow hair on your face.
I had to shave on back-to-back days earlier this week.
Whoa! What the hell did you get into?
I don't know. I might have gotten too close to a nuclear power plant.
Bunch of lead shavings from a pencil sharpener? What happened here?
Something like that.
Princeton's at 21-0. They got them slated as a 6 seed. Compare to me, if you would, the Ivy League this year and the Summit League in 2009, 2010 when SDSU was like 32-2. I don't think there's much of a difference. Maybe I give the edge to the Summit League. You got a bunch of shit like Yale. Yale's 11-9. Brown is 9-11, Harvard's 9-11, Columbia's 6-14, Dartmouth is 10-10, Cornell's 13-7, Penn is 12-7. Would you compare the Ivy League and the Summit League at all? How the hell do they get a goddamn 6 seed?
I can't believe you're making me look up Princeton's non-conference schedule.
They beat Pitt, they beat Duquesne, they beat Drexel, they beat American, they beat Wake.
Yeah, I see this. They beat Michigan.
I mean, nothing there really.
Delaware, not traditionally a good program.
To be fair, to add a little bit here, they've been pretty good the last few years, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
They've made the tournament a few years in a row, so I think they're getting a little bit more credit to them. They're not just a flash in the pan. A 6 seed, yeah, it's too high. I mean, I know next to nothing about women's basketball than the top few teams, and a little bit I follow Summit just because of SDSU or whatever, but, a 6 seed, who cares? A winner game or two. It's probably a product more of anything that the top level of women's basketball is so far above and beyond. There's we talk about the men's tournament and how unpredictable it can be and has been recently. Well, the exact opposite is true about the women's tournament because usually every year there's 2 or 3 teams. You get your UConns, your Notre Dames, your Dukes, your whatever.
South Carolina.
UConn, South Carolina. UConn, South Carolina tomorrow night. Let's go 1 versus 2. Let's see what happens there. But women's basketball, take it or leave it. But go Princeton. I hope they make a run to to just prove that their Ivy League's not exactly dog shit.
Princeton hosts the first 2 rounds. They'll probably get home games.
Wow. I will say that there's a lot of credit, like David said, say what you will about women's basketball, but there's a lot of credit for these teams, and it goes back to Tennessee, UConn, playing the best teams, in the country every year, year in and year out. Obviously, Stanford beat UConn earlier this year, and then lost at home, or lost in the very next game. Was that South Carolina? I don't remember, but it was what?
To Texas, I think. If I remember.
Texas, okay. But I mean, obviously, middle of February, you got number 1, number 2 UConn and South Carolina playing. I think there's a lot of credit that goes to the top programs in women's basketball for recognizing that those teams need to be playing each other. So kudos to them.
I'll give Charlie the final say here. Are you in favor of making Princeton our women's team of choice heading into the deal?
That's fine with me. I don't have any problem with Princeton women's basketball. And if you want, here's an idea for the men's team, a team that someone mentioned earlier to be the Clemson for men's basketball. I'm not saying that we should necessarily do this, but if you want to take Clemson football-wise over the last 10, 12 years and always having these lofty rankings and then never quite living up to them and folding late, you know who that makes me think of in college basketball? Notre Dame.
This is the best team they've had in a long time, so they'll probably, maybe they top out at a 3 seed. So
come Sunday afternoon of the first weekend, they'll be out of the tournament. So. Anyways, Princeton women's basketball. I don't know if you can see my shirt or not. The Sports Lounge is officially all in.
Oh.
There we go.
Get your similarly to Charlie's hat to open the show. We should be able to pretty easily get black hats and then be able to put a very cheap orange P on the front of them. So go Princeton.
Go Princeton.
Do the Princeton women run the Princeton offense?
I don't know. I doubt it. If they want to be good, they don't.
That would be pretty cool if they did, and they were actually really good with it.
They run the 4 corners, is what they run. Little baseball news. 2 weeks away from spring training. They head to Arizona. They head to Florida. James Shields, still not signed. Rumors has it. Industry guesses here. 4 years, $75 million. The agent said it's more than that. What he was looking for 5 years, $110 for a 33-year-old guy. Probably not going to get that. The Padres, as far as I know, seem to be the favorite. Is this where you expect Mr. Shields to sign with San Diego?
Yeah, that's where all the rumblings have been leading that way, and I would be kind of surprised if he doesn't end up going there. Which we talked about this yesterday in chat, and I think that would be enough for me, in my eyes, to make them the favorite out west in the National League West. That rotation, if depending, if there's rumors that they were trying to make a move for Cole Hamels too. Obviously, if they get Shields, those Hamels talks will cease. But that rotation, what they've done in the offense, bringing Upton and the like, that division's not exactly super strong. Yeah, the Giants have won 3 last 5 World Series, but regular season-wise, they never run away with things usually, and they won 88 games last year. The rest of that division, Arizona should be a little bit better. Colorado is going to be dog shit again because they have the equivalent of about 7 double-A pitchers in their starting rotation. So God known reason in that ballpark to be giving up 5 home runs a game. But it's San Diego. You look at Toronto somehow. I think you alluded to that yesterday, Travis. That there was rumors that they made a deal, they made an offer to him, whatever. But go to San Diego, go to the NL, go to that ballpark. Shields, 33 years old, numbers wise, potential to win, and win now. Why not? Good for him. I do find it interesting though. I shared that Fangraphs thing that I think Buster on this one that had that sorts of the people that have thrown the most pitches the last 8 years. And just the sheer amount of number of pitches that he's thrown, amongst the league leaders in the top 5, whatever. Verlander's number 1, but there's just the thousands and thousands of pitches, the thousands of innings he's put on that arm in his career. He's always a guy. He's going to go 6 or 7, but yeah, he's going to give up 3 or 4 runs. But you can just about take it to the bank, and he's going to go 7 strong every time out. I think think it's a home run move for San Diego, and I think it's a move that could win them that division.
Charlie, is this why this guy's lasted so long out there in the free agent market? He's 33, a little older, wants a 5-year deal. Is probably going to get a 4-year deal. A lot of innings. Has not broken down yet. But do you think people would be cautious at a guy this age with that many innings?
I mean, to an extent, you'd have to think that's at least part of it. I mean, a 33-year-old pitcher that's already logged a lot of innings. I mean, getting a huge contract. I mean, I think you'd have to say that plays at least some role in it. I don't know if it's the number one reason or not, but it's at least a factor.
I would be willing to go in on a 4-year deal on this guy. $80 million, I'd be willing to do that. If I'm a team that doesn't spend a lot of money, hint, hint, I would go in on that. The Cubs, former manager Joe Madden there, interesting dark horse candidate, but hopefully you would think something by tomorrow, hopefully, but God knows, maybe next week he still will not have signed. We'll talk some Anderson Silva and some steroids, talk some Royal Rumble. Marcus, your thoughts on the Royal Rumble?
What was that, like 3 weeks ago now?
That was 7 months ago.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and we haven't talked about it. Wow.
No. Yeah.
I know that Mr. Schottenkirk was pretty
pissed.
unimpressed.
He was pissed.
He was very upset. I know he threatened to cancel WWE Network. I'm pretty sure he didn't do that. And I mean, it was kind of entertaining, but I could, even as a non-fan, I could tell that there was a lot to be desired from that. A lot left on the table, I think. A lot left in the ring.
The most enjoyment I got out of that whole event was the fact that I truly, firmly believe that Marcus did spend a couple hours on a Sunday night watching a pay-per-view event, and he was messaging me with different things about, wow, that was terrible, wow, that was cool, whatever. And I was getting more enjoyment out of that, because without that would have been a lot more pissed off. And believe me, I was pissed off enough with how the Rumble went.
Charlie, how much did you see?
How much did I probably watched?
Half hour?
I know I came in at some point and watched it until the very end. It was probably about the last half hour, 45 minutes. I'm thinking they were on like number somewhere between like 18 and 23 or so when I started watching it.
One rule that I learned that I didn't know is that they can't just throw you out of the ring. It's got to be over the top, right?
Yes, that was something that was passed in the collective bargaining agreement quite a while ago. It was a rule change.
Good.
So
that leads to just about every year somebody going out of the ring underneath or through the middle of the rope or underneath the bottom rope, and then people forgetting about him and him coming back and it shockingly a guy or two later on the Rumble. It's one of those rules that everybody knows, and you just want to be guaranteed that it gets twisted at least one way or another every year.
Marcus?
I know one of my favorite things every year is when and I don't think it worked out exactly like this, but it's when the guy comes in with his music and is all like super excited and jacked up and like points a guy out and walks in and is thrown out within 4 seconds. That's always one of my favorite things.
Yeah.
They fucked that up this year, didn't they?
They sure did. they were trying to tie the record for quick elimination, and they botched the hell out of it.
Before Marcus goes, tell us when you need to go. Your absolute. We're done. I want to get your Brian Williams thoughts before you leave.
In about a minute. So you want him right now?
Sure. Brian Williams, is that a big deal? Do you expect him to last?
It's a big deal. I expect him to last. I mean, he's built up quite a bit of trust at NBC. He's been on there for more than 10 years. I mean, he messed up pretty bad, but I think we're figuring out that this whole fog of war thing is pretty legitimate. I mean, we've seen it with other stories where you got. I was watching TV today, and they mentioned something about a case where 2 guys were over in Iraq, and they both said that they threw this smoke grenade, and it turned out neither one of them did. They were fighting over throwing the smoke grenade, and then somebody else had to throw it. So I guess being over there will will sort of distort your memory. Now, I don't know why Brian Williams felt like he had to pump this up as much as he did over the last 10 years, and that doesn't really make a lot of sense. But I think he'll take a week, 2 weeks off, and NBC clearly wants it to blow over. I don't think it will, but I don't think you should also hang this guy out to dry for this mistake. Now, if there's a continued line of mistakes like people are trying to prove with Katrina, I think that's a different conversation. But I think for now he's going to keep his job, and I think he probably should.
All this means for me, Mark and I have went back and forth. We're both big fans of Brian Williams, and we've talked about him, well in advance of this story break here just recently. But I watch the nightly news as much as I can. I've always liked what he's done. I've always liked the way he delivers stuff, talks about things, and has a certain amount of credibility with me. But Mr. Lester Holt has to be the happiest person alive right now, and that again irks and pisses me off because Lester Holt is a shitbag.
I found it funny because somebody mentioned that NBC doesn't have a clear replacement for Brian Williams, and if I'm Lester Holt and I read that, I'm like, no respect for Lester Holt. And I like Lester Holt most days, so I guess that's not a huge deal. But he's got to feel disrespected. His eyes just bother me for some reason. He's got a weird look to him. One of my favorite skits is I think it was when Seth Meyers was starting his late show, and they had like a fake NBC. You like have to be a friend with somebody at NBC, and it was him and Lester Holt. And Lester Holt, it's like 6 minutes of Lester Holt just giving him the cold shoulder, and it was pretty funny.
Who's older?
Who's older, Lester Holt or Brian Williams?
Yeah.
I think Lester Holt might be.
Yeah, because Brian Williams is what, 55?
2 months older.
Yeah.
Wow.
I thought Lester Holt was like 65. He's 55.
Wow. One of the big critiques of Brian Williams in this is obviously he's become a little bit more of a celebrity than a newsman lately with all the appearances on the late shows, and he's been on Letterman. That's part of this story. Hosted SNL in 2007. I don't think that's ever impacted his job. I think it's made it more likable, but I'll be curious to see if that's toned down. He's supposed to be on Letterman later this week. I'm guessing that won't happen.
Is this a Peyton Manning situation where there is no backup? There is no backup.
I thought this was going to be a Peyton Manning thing where he can't win the big one.
He can't win the big one. Brian Williams can't win the big one.
And now that he's out for a little bit, they're going to go 1-15.
That's right.
So who do they draft? Who's the guy they get next year?
Josh Elliott.
No, go. I don't like it. I don't like it.
It'll be Ryan Seacrest.
Oh God.
I don't like it either.
Seacrest is busy enough. He doesn't have time to actually take a real journalism job.
Boom.
I mean, he really is just a face, so I'm sure he could figure it out.
Well, yeah. He'd all enjoy his $60 or $70 million a year producing shit reality shows that one David Shattenkirk falls in love with.
Tough job.
Can't miss that. So, I mean, to answer your question, I think Lester Holt is greater than or equal to Brock Osweiler.
That's rough. I'd give Lester Holt the edge there. Brock Osweiler's garbage.
Yeah.
He's trash. He sucks.
All right. Have a good afternoon.
We appreciate the time.
You bet.
Bye, Marcus.
Back to important things. The Royal Rumble. We thought Roman Reigns would win. Were you surprised that Daniel Bryan did not last longer?
Yes and no, because the way it broke down, obviously, with Reigns winning, it was the most predictable thing ever. What I had the biggest problem with, just to go full circle here, the biggest problem for me was the fact that it played out exactly how I didn't want it to, even though I was 90% sure Reigns was going to win. But I wanted the last 3 or 4 guys to be other guys in fucking Big Show, Kane, and whoever else was in there. I can't remember now because I erased it from my memory as quickly as I possibly could. But getting Bryan out when they did, because otherwise, if he was there any longer and getting down upon a few guys, then the crowd would just build and build and build that maybe they're going to have him win again. So I have no issue with getting him out when they did. I have more of an issue with how the rest of the match went after he got eliminated, with the guys that went out, and just big show. And obviously, he's one of the biggest heels that they have right now, which is one of the bigger problems with the company, is that he's been around forever. Take him for what you will. He's done some good work, but 5 years ago, he was 5 years past his prime. Now he's fucking 10 years past his prime, and he's still one of the top guys that you have in your final few in the Rumble. I just didn't like it, and the finish was like, if you sat down and you thought about it, an 8-year-old that's watched the product for a year, they could have told you exactly how the finish went, and son of a bitch if it didn't go like everyone thought it was going to go. Rock coming out at the end, and praying around Reigns or whatever, that just infuriated the crowd more, which I found hysterical, because shithead Vince McMahon thought trotting Rock out there and having him celebrate whatever would maybe turn the crowd back on the Reigns side. It went from bad to worse, and I was kind of glad to see it. And jumping forward here, this Reigns Bryan match at Fastlane, there is no chance that Daniel Bryan wins that match. It's over before it even starts. Booking wise, I get why they do it, because they want Bryan. They're trying to appease the fans, and he's got a chance. But in all reality, they're just gonna shit on him again when Reigns wins that match.
Charlie, Big Show's been there 15 years, been around 20. Kane's been around for 20 years. Guys at the end of the match, maybe different picks, perhaps?
I mean, to me, the one thing I did like about it is that I did know who both those two guys were. I didn't know who the other two guys were at all. But, like, doing those two guys, like, teaming up and throwing everyone out, like, I think that's okay. But you got to do that, like, numbers 11 through 7, or like 11 through 17, and not at the very end.
Yep.
Or at least, I mean, to me, now I'm not as into it as you guys are, but I would say that's something you do in the middle of the thing when there's like 17 guys in there to clear it out, and then you have everyone else that's left, like, get those guys out, and then you have your 4 other guys. That would be big deals to do it at the very end.
A lot of things watching this did not make sense. Last year, Roman Reigns went through, 13 guys, all-time record.
Yep.
This year, Bray Wyatt was kind of that guy that went through all the guys early on, like Charlie said.
Yep.
Roman Reigns dropped 4 or 5 guys. Shouldn't he have been the guy again to get out 10, 12 guys, and so that the Royal Rumble can kind of be like his thing, where each year he comes in and he drops like 10 guys? Why would you not, especially if you're going to win the damn thing, why would you not do that again this year? Because he really didn't do anything this year. He just sat there.
Yeah, it was kind of a questionable decision for me, but I think he did what he did last year because they were trying to start him and start his push. Obviously, he's been pushed for a year now, leading up to this year's Rumble, winning the thing. I think long term they could make that a thing, but if you don't want to create a character that's like, oh yeah, he won't do much all year, but come Rumble time, he'll knock out 10 or 12 guys, and he might win it, 2, 3, 4 times in his career. I think they want to establish him as a championship guy, as a guy who's somebody who's going to win the Rumble to face at Mania, not necessarily have to be in the Rumble all the time to advance to Mania, to be in that main event. It just, I don't know. I don't have an issue with Reigns. I think he has a ton of potential. His mic skills are coming along very slowly, but they're getting there. I absolutely love his in the ring work stuff. I'm kind of in the minority there, but I see flashes of brilliance. I see flashes of brilliance in a lot of guys. It's just a matter of who's really going to take it to that next level, who's really going to make that push, and who's really going to have the support behind them to continue to make that push. The product's never going to be what it was in the heyday during the Attitude Era. We could get a hell of a lot closer to that eventually down the road, storyline-wise. I think storyline-wise, it's as good as it's been in a while. I just still think that there's an absolute lack of depth of talent. There's, 8 or 9 singles guys that have, a lot of charisma, A-list players, but after that it falls off a cliff, and it doesn't stop falling for a long time.
It's amazing to think, because he was the second to last guy there last year, and everybody wanted him to win, and they hated Batista. Now you fast forward a year later, nobody wanted Roman Reigns to win, and for Christ's sake, they were cheering for Rusev of all people. Whoever was put in that spot would have been cheered. And I had said that Rusev should be the last guy in there because there's no way they're going to boo him over Rusev, but that did not happen. They cheered the Russian instead. Heading into the pay-per-view in a couple weeks, I don't understand putting Daniel Bryan and Roman Reigns together because, again, he will get booed out of the building again, and I don't know why you would put him in a position unless... Only way I see it working at WrestleMania is if Lesnar's the crowd favorite and Reigns gets booed.
That's exactly... That's the only thing that makes sense. And it took me a while. I'm up to it, my eyeballs, and I'm still a diehard. All the other dirt sheets and shit, but that's exactly the way that it appears, and it makes sense. And I've been thinking about it too the last few weeks, even leading up to the Rumble. If they did what they did at the Rumble, and they probably knew the reception was not going to be very good, did they expect it to be as bad as it was? No, probably not. But now, having Reigns v. Bryan at Fastlane, have Reigns win that match, he goes into Mania, and Lesnar's already been teetering on the fact that he's a heel or a face right now. You could have Reigns could instantly become your biggest heel in the company if he wins the title at Mania. Maybe that's the direction they go for him. Put the title on the biggest heel for a while, let him run, and obviously he's just getting into his career. We'll see what happens to Lesnar if he sticks around or not. I don't know, but Lesnar, for my money, Lesnar, for as good of a heel as he's been, he could be 10 times better as a face.
Seth Rollins has to cash in here sometime soon.
Yeah, that's we've been talking about that for how many pay-per-views now. He's got to. We thought Survivor Series maybe, nope, didn't happen. The Rumble, no, didn't happen. You know, we got Fastlane. Is he going to cash in at fucking Fastlane of all things? No, probably not. So what's he going to do? Is he going to take it? I don't know what they're doing with that, but it's going to. No matter what they do, it'll surprise me because I honestly have no idea. Like I just said, it'll be. Storyline-wise, there's 100 different directions they can go with it. I just hope that they find one that makes some sort of sense with all the other things going on right now within the company.
Losing out on the Daniel Bryan Brock Lesnar match. I mean, it's going to be a couple of years, I'm thinking, before they have that chance again, and that's unfortunate because I think I don't know if I think it's the biggest match they can do right now of any combination. I think that's the biggest one.
As far as fan interest and fan, at that venue, I would agree. The biggest money draws potential probably is that match. I would agree with that.
Charlie, we got WrestleMania next year at Cowboy Stadium. Any big stadiums you would like to see WrestleMania go to, or you would think would be cool to see? I'm hoping they come to Minneapolis sometime in the next 5 to 10 years. That'd be something. Any venue you would like?
It's not an indoor one, so it could theoretically create problems if it's outdoors. But generally, it's nice weather. I think it'd be neat if they did something big at the Rose Bowl.
Yeah, there we go. Or the Coliseum, the Rose Bowl. That'd be.
Yeah, either one.
That always looks cool. That always looks nice. Any other thoughts? WrestleMania seems to be fairly set, I think. You got,
I think the card is pretty well set as far as the main matches. I think Taker versus Bray's pretty much locked, which is take it or leave it. I think it's gonna be a good match. Hopefully Taker, doesn't look like he's halfway dying from this match like he did last year. Sting versus Hunter will be good. You look at the title match, Reigns and Lesnar, or Bryan versus somebody. But
Ziggler, it sounds Ziggler.
Yeah, which that's got a lot of potential too. But that's not where those guys want to be. They want to be in that one step further up, fight for the title. But Bryan versus Ziggler could be if both those guys buy in and do 100% and just say screw it, let's steal the show. They very well could. But I still have a bone to pick because. Is Randy Orton dead, or what the hell are they? What are we waiting for? He's been gone forever. He's healthy. He's been doing a house show here or there. He's been rumored to come back for 3-4 weeks now. He's like, oh, he'll be at Raw. Oh, he'll be at the Rumble, and he's been there, but they have nothing for him. It's like storyline wise, what is he supposed to do? They ain't giving him
Seth
shit.
Rollins deal. That's how he got out. He came back. That's the WrestleMania match. At this point, you may as well leave him until after the pay-per-view and come back then and do something and get that going and do it there.
Well, yeah, and you have, after Fastlane, you got, what, 4 weeks, and the Mania's right around the corner or whatever, so yeah, they could build that up real quick or whatever, but, Randy's got to be frustrated because, he's been a top guy for 10 or 12 years, just like Cena, but it seems like they've a lot more interest recently and always with Cena as far as storyline-wise and just, creativity, different aspects of that, whatever, but Randy's got to be getting an itch again. At least I hope, as a diehard Randy fan, that I hope he's got a couple more runs in him. I think he'll still have another title two reign or two left in him, but we'll see. The company's going in a different direction. He's gonna be around for a while, but he's not that. I don't think he's that main event guy all the time anymore, which kind of sucks because I still, for my money, I still think he's a top 2 or 3 guy in ring talent, anyways. But I digress.
One more wrestling question. I want to get Charlie's thoughts on some TV shows. NXT. Any attention to NXT? Any thoughts?
I know I've heard of the NXT, but I don't remember what it is.
Okay, David. Any?
Sorry.
I'm going to ask you about House of Cards.
Okay.
The new Breaking Bad show, the Better Call Saul show. So be prepared for that.
Gotcha.
NXT. I got an idea for NXT. They should have a match at WrestleMania. They should have one match, 2 guys. They should be on the.
Yeah, I fully agree. And I think NXT. I mean, if you saw the Stone Cold with Hunter this last week, that was again a very good podcast. It wasn't as good as Stone Cold and Vince, but there was some really good moments in there as far as some inside shit, whatever. But NXT-wise, Hunter's been doing that, and he's been writing that whole show for a while now. And for just as far as a show goes, being entertained, I've been more entertained for at least the last 4 or 5 months. I watch NXT every week, and I watch it all religiously, just like I do everything else. It's 1,000 times better show. Part of that's obviously because they have less time to fill, but they have and there's less less guys they have to meet or meet expectations for storyline as far as fans interaction, whatever. But there's something there, and I just hope that sooner or later Vince realizes that Hunter's got something going, and he can do that, and he can write that good of shit for the main show too, and take over. Because Vince, God bless his soul, but he's eventually he's got to understand that 3 hours of not just absolute shit sometimes on Raw. Yeah, it's been better recently, but Hunter's the guy for the job, and I'd never thought Vince would step down in a way as much as he has, but taking that next step and letting Hunter and the other guys he has in those positions take over has to be done sooner or later if they want to, potentially, because sooner or later they're going to start losing money, and they have. This network's been a debacle. It's been picking up recently, whatever, but Vince, he's the most stubborn person probably in the world history, and that's not even an exaggeration. He's been a tough SOB, and one guy that wants to do it his way or the eye or whatever, but I think sooner or later, within the next year or two, he'll realize that Hunter and Steph and all the other writing guys and a lot of the other executives or whatever, they got it pretty well figured out, and it'll be just fine if he does permanently step away.
Who's the next guy that they do that podcast with in a couple months?
Oh, boy. Honestly, you got Vince done and you got Triple H done. There's a guy that I want to see so bad, and that is one Shane McMahon. Because why he left a few years ago when he did out of the company or whatever. I want to hear that. I want to hear about his run, because you take a look back 8-10 years ago and even further back. It's for a guy that really didn't have all that much training or whatever. He was one of the most entertaining guys in the ring I've ever seen as far as the shit that he did, some of the matches that he had. And he was a brilliant mind for the business too, but he saw that Steph was in there and was entrenched as that top person. He went to the private sector. He's making a shit ton of money, doing a lot of good work, whatever. But I'm interested to see if Shane would ever consider jumping back in, because I think he would down the line. It's still probably a ways off. Shane, maybe Linda. Linda wouldn't be as good as Shane, obviously. You get a guy, I think Stone Cold and Cena have already done a certain amount of that. It wasn't on the network, it was just a podcast. Or you can get a guy, you can get a Sting or somebody like that.
Yeah, there we go.
There's a lot of names anyways out there.
It's really, they don't.
I just assumed that McMahon left so he could follow Rory McIlroy's golf career.
What are the highlights? What are the highlights? What happened to him when he hasn't been there, has he? Last couple, Rory, I haven't seen him.
He was at that one, I know.
Was that one of the first
That was
couple?
like 3 years ago, 3 or 4 years ago.
He was at the British Open, maybe. That was fun to see. Usually on the podcast, it's not really storyline driven. It's kind of, more,
The insider shit.
Yes.
That we all die for, so.
But I would say the next one should be like the week before Wrestlemania or something. They have Roman Reigns for a half hour, Brock Lesnar with Paul Heyman for a half hour. Build that up. Do kind of half and half storyline, half not. See what you can get there.
Yeah.
Charlie, David, have you seen Breaking Bad?
I have, yep.
Holy fuck. Charlie, you've seen it as well, I think?
Yep, I didn't watch it all. I ended up watching it all on Netflix. I didn't watch it on, like, when the season was over, I didn't, like, start watching it the next season on TV. I waited till it was on Netflix, but I've seen them all.
I got done with it a couple weeks ago. Best show I've ever seen is the best show you've ever seen. And why? Or why not?
God, I don't know what the best show I've ever seen is. I mean, it was good. I really liked it. I've seen a lot of different stuff though, but it would be up there towards the top.
Yeah, it's definitely towards the top of me. And believe it or not, I'm really not that much for shows like that. Anyways, I really haven't gotten into a lot of shows that people have got into over the years. That's one I did, and I'm more like I'm sports, reality, and wrestling. That's what I live and breathe or whatever. But it was a show that I got hooked on, and it's definitely for the limited amount of shows like that or in that vein or whatever. It's definitely in my top handful.
Now you got the Better Call Saul coming up tonight and tomorrow. Do you have high expectations for this show, Charlie?
I kind of hope it'll be interesting. I think that. I mean, I don't know all the details about it. I did set it to record on my DVR. I think the one thing I hope that they're careful is that, like, it always seemed like Saul was, kind of like, a lot of those parts were more humorous,
Yep.
and I hope, like, they don't take it too far and, like, try to be, like, too much like a sitcom, but at the same time, you need to find the happy medium, because it should, at least I would think, you don't want it to be as serious as a lot of the Breaking Bad stuff was, which is like, oh, wow, this is... I mean, it's entertaining, but it's like, this is awful and terrible. And I hope they can find that medium of, like, sleazy lawyer that's kind of funny, but is still kind of being sleazy and gross at the same time.
Yeah, I got big expectations for the show. It's been a while since I've seen a show with commercials, because Netflix is so good and you watch them one after another. There's no commercials, and... You want to watch 2 shows back to back, or you want to watch one show on a Monday and want to watch it again on a Wednesday, you can do that. So watching an actual show that comes on every week, you kind of forget what happened the week before. I ended this show, and I started House of Cards on 2 episodes into that. What is that like? Is that good, very good, great? What would you tell me as a viewer who's seen those episodes?
I think it's pretty good. I don't know at some point in time, it might not even be in this season, in the first season, and this isn't like really spoiling anything.
Spoilers, everybody!
But they find some interview from like a long time ago, and it turns out that Frank Underwood claims in an interview that he's a Clemson fan.
Whoa!
So he's got that going for him. Because he's from South Carolina in the show. He's the representative. And I guess the 3rd season comes out in just like a few weeks here. But I mean, I think it's really good. It's not. It's sort of like Breaking Bad in a way that it's not at a super upbeat all the time, and there's times where things don't go well. But it's interesting. I think the thing I like the most about it is it's politics in Washington, D.C., but it is not like ideological. This way's better, or this way's better. It's more of like, this is how they try to get things done. And even though this guy may or may not agree with this, he's not going to do what you want because he needs you to, convince the committee that you're on to approve to build this bridge that his town needs, as opposed to doing it for, whatever reasons. And, in times where Congress has a low approval rating, or very low approval ratings, it's interesting to see a show showing Congress as sleazy and gross.
this is a show, but how much of it do you believe as far as something like that happens in real life?
I would say it's sort of like, if anyone remembers that show Playmakers on ESPN that lasted like 1 year.
I thought
it was good.
I guarantee you David watched every episode of that.
I don't know if I watched all of them. I watched a lot of them, though, and I thought it was good. And apparently the NFL made ESPN get rid of it because they didn't like it. But I would say it's probably sort of like Playmakers, where everything that in the show might happen, but it does not all happen to one team in one season, all right in a row. They're taking things from multiple places. So I would say it's probably like that, where the characters you get to know in House of Cards, like in a 6 month or a year span, you're not going to have all this stuff happen to you, but it could happen to a variety of different people over like a 5 or a 6 year span.
Any other shows out there on Netflix or otherwise that would be worth a look?
I'm trying to think off the top of my head without doing the stacking dead air time in the trivia game thing.
Who hit 50 home runs in 1996? who was that?
I know I like the Ken Burns stuff. I think I've watched a lot of it now, but like the baseball's good. The Civil War was kind of good, but at times that sort of drags on.
Don't spoil the ending. Do not spoil the ending of the Civil War. I'm only up to 1863 here. I think the North is going to win, but I would not be surprised if the South comes back. So
just 2 years left. You can never count out that General Lee. And then the other one I like I think it's just called The War, and it's just about World War II. I thought, and that's also by Ken Burns. I thought those were, especially the World War II one and the baseball one, I thought were pretty good.
All of his baseball stuff's been on the MLB Network the last couple of weeks on weekends and at night. Like that whole thing, I've watched a good majority of that. And I think I've seen it all, but Ken Burns, you just can't go wrong with anything he's done.
Plenty of good stuff.
I don't know, from what I remember, like they break it down like the name of it by innings. And I think like the first innings, the very beginning stuff, I thought that was okay, but it's like once they got to about like 1915 or so, where like they were players like you'd start to heard of before, then it really gets interesting. And like the second Babe Ruth shows up, it's like everything from then on, they were at least players I had heard of and knew a little bit about, and that's where it was really interesting, I thought.
Yep. Agreed.
I do enjoy that a game like baseball with as much history as it has, the goddamn thing's like 20 hours long. So that's good.
That's long.
You can tell a story in 20 hours. So that they uncover every notable thing. And the one they released a couple of years ago, the updated one over the past 20 years, that was quality as well.
Yeah. I like that they brought back a lot of the people from the original one too. I think that was one of my favorite things about the new one. And you just see that it's like, oh wow, that guy he looks 20 years older now.
Yeah.
Bob Costas looked the same somehow. I don't know. Gumbel and Costas, they all look the same. Ahmad Rashad too. Two more things left. Anderson Silva. I did not see the fight. Wanted to see it. Did not see it. 5-round victory over Nick Diaz. Diaz gets popped for marijuana for the 10th time, and Anderson Silva with some steroids. He denies it like everybody else does. Was it because old age, coming back from a major injury, a little something extra for him?
Yeah, I think that's exactly what it was, and like you said, of course he denies it just like everybody else does. There's no doubt that it was in his system. To what level, to what degree, I'm not quite sure, but that was a fight that I was 95, 90, more than that percent sure that Silva was going to win. He did. It wasn't as entertaining as I was hoping for. Silva was, for his standards, he was very tentative, which I guess you can explain the fact that last time he was in the cage, he bust his leg in a horrific fashion, and it's been a while, and a little bit of ring rust and whatever, but we'll see with this steroids thing now, moving forward. He just signed that however fight agreement with again, but if he fights more than two or three times, I think right now anyways, I'd be kind of surprised if he has more than that many fights left in him. I think, obviously he's one of the best, if not the best of all times as far as what he did, what he's done, what he continues to do as far as his personality standpoint and just stylistically. But I hope for his sake, and I hope for the sake of the sport in general, that he gets out and people can remember for how good he truly was, and not this last, him losing the Weidman twice and breaking his leg, and now this steroids thing. I think one or two more decent names and retire and go live a happy life in Brazil, a very, very rich individual.
Benson Henderson, short rest again. He faced Cerrone. Cerrone coming off like 2-3 weeks rest. And Benson Henderson here less than a month later fighting. Brandon Thatch, he should win that.
Yeah, I haven't looked at the odds, and I'm pretty sure he's probably a decent-sized favorite. But Benson, take him or leave him, for me, last year or two, stylistically, he's never been a favorite of mine, but I do respect him, and I do definitely respect him for getting back in there as quickly as he is.
Finally, the wives bracket. I've made my picks. Traxler made his picks. Are you ready to do the Final Four in the championship? One more week. What's your call?
We get so the way it's going to break down is that I have my votes in, your votes, Traxler's, and Almond's votes.
Oh, Almond, goddamn!
Almond got his votes in. So Charlie, there is you pretty much do just hold the fate of this thing.
Wow.
Oh man.
Do you want to get his pick first and then give the result, or give the result first then get his pick?
I think we're gonna need his pick first, not to sway him one way or the other.
Very nice, very nice.
So
That's fine.
Let's go matchup by matchup. The first semi, Catherine Webb or Lauren Cosgrove. Who's your winner there?
I thought this was the more difficult of the two. I would go with Webb on this one.
Okay. And then on the other side of the bracket, this is where it kind of gets interesting. Jesse James Decker or Elaine Eldon Fields for that one in the second semi.
This is just quick side note. Other than Webb, I always forget what most of them, like the names and which face go with which name. And looking at these, I was like, oh, well, this is tough. And then I typed in the other one, and I was like, oh, no, this is over. Never mind. And I picked Fields.
Well done.
Well done. That's the title match. Decide this whole thing as the votes come in. Webb versus Fields in your title match. Who's your winner?
Do we have any? Do we have a breakdown of who picked who?
I'm gonna get his pick first. I'll tell you how it broke down.
Oh, for the championship. Okay.
Championship, yep.
I will give credit to Webb saying that she went a lot further in this than I thought she would initially. Kind of a real underdog / Cinderella story. But I'm taking Fields. Bingo.
All right. So Fields is the winner in your eyes. The way it broke down, Drew had Catherine Webb winning the whole thing. Having her beating, I think, Jesse James Decker in the final, actually. Marcus had Jesse James Decker winning the whole thing. He had her taking out Webb in the final, which is, God bless him, but he made a mistake not picking Fields. The other three of us, me, Travis, Charlie, all had Fields over Webb in the final. So Elaine Alden Fields is your champion.
It's well done, sir. It's well done. We used to give out a $25 gift certificate to the T Steakhouse for winning trivia. I don't know if this is something we want to do if you win the bracket.
Yeah, we come up with something because, I mean, obviously she's not struggling. She's married to a shithead in Lansing Fields, but she's got enough source of income. But hell, if she's ever in South Dakota, we'll hook her up with a gift certificate, a gift card to somewhere that she'll probably never use, but hell, why not?
I'll let the business manager take care of that. He's got the connections to the corporate offices of the T Steakhouse, downtown T.
Well, she gets two of them, that and then also to Kriens' favorite location, to Taco Town.
Taco Town! We're going to the gas station in Brookings right off the interstate to get a approximately 20 pounds of taco stuff for $2. That is a good deal. That is always a good deal. Any brackets? We're going to take a break from the bracket. We got something coming up. We got something stewing. Rumors are heavy in the dirt sheets. There might be another one coming up.
Yeah, we got them started. I got 11 names already figured out and seated in the reverse, the ugly wives competition bracket. So if everything goes to plan, we should have that unveiling next week. So we'll roll from the good to the bad, which is kind of funny because we should have done the bad one first, and get all distraught about all these athletes are dating these ugly-looking women, but instead we'll go from the supermodel wives to the quote-unquote ugly wives, which a lot of people's opinions, some of these people in this next bracket are not ugly, but my taste, and I have distinct likes and dislikes, so it'll be a good time. And seating-wise, this is for Mr. Traxler, if he watches this later on tonight. Seating-wise, Marcus, I promise you, the seats will be better and more deserved of instead of this crap where we had what's her face, the 27 overall seed or whatever she was, make it a deep run. Fields a 6 seed, win the whole thing. A 16 seed in Webb make the final. So I can promise you that there won't be a 16 seed making the final as the ugliest one. The 1 seed will be the ugliest in my eyes. A 16 the least ugly, but still ugly in a sense.
Will this be 16?
Catherine Webb can take solace in the fact that she's the most successful 16 seed of all time now.
Bingo. Yes, 16 is the plan. I might get it up to 20 or 24. We'll see. But 16's it's the target anyways.
All right. So plan on voting for that next week. The not so attractive wives bracket. Fields is your winner. What's her name again?
Elaine Alden Fields.
Alden Fields.
Yeah.
Your winner.
At the end of this, I think we're all winners, really, having been able to go through this.
Lots of pictures, good stuff there by David putting that together. So appreciate Mr. Traxler getting on the horn in his Carolina Blue. For David Schottenkirk, Charlie Hildebrand, Travis Kriens here. Next week, I'm sure we'll be discussing Clayton Kershaw's wife on the 105th edition of The Lounge.